everyone, good afternoon. What is access consciousness? What is a clearing statement that you use with this? What are questions that teachers of access consciousness encourage you to ask yourself? And finally, how does access consciousness play a role in an energetic facelift with today's guest? We're going to talk about that and much, much more this afternoon. In today's Reawaken You, so today's my birthday. Now I was going to have a slice of cheesecake, and I've just decided no matter how much weight I gain, I'm having a slice of cheesecake on my birthday. But, you know, usually on our birthdays, sound effects here, I love it. We're usually really kind to ourselves, right? And everyone's saying, hey, happy birthday on Facebook, and we treat ourselves well, or treat ourselves something maybe that we don't at other times during the year. But why can't every day be like your birthday? Why don't you celebrate you in some small way every day? And, you know, I was just posting on something the other day. I try to be my own best friend instead of my own worst enemy. So, you know, this week practice making it your birthday, even if it isn't, and feel out how you can treat yourself a little bit better as if it was your birthday and your special day. Because really, you are unique and special, and every day is your birthday. Okay, we're going to tell you about today's guest. Sophie Dangtran graduated from the University of Connecticut with a Bachelor of Science degree and from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute with a Master of Science degree. She worked as a computer programmer and then as a website designer and producer. In November 2004, she became a Reiki master teacher in the Usui and Raku-Kei systems of Reiki. In 2005, she left the corporate world to devote herself full-time to Reiki and jewelry. In 2011, she learned about access consciousness and began incorporating it into her work. She became an Access Bars facilitator the following year. She is now an Access Consciousness Body Process Facilitator as well. Sophie lives in Raleigh, North Carolina with 3 cats, Princess Zoe, Ronnie, and BC. Welcome, Sophie.
Thank you, Julie. It's great to be here with you.
Very excited. I know a little bit about Access Consciousness through Sophie, and we were introduced by Dr. Julianne Trell, who's been on the show, and we're going to talk about it later in the show, her energetic facelift. It's one of those things, you've heard me say this before on the show, as much as I believe in things, which includes a lot of stuff, I'm still amazed, or always have that little bit of skepticism until I see it for myself, and this really blew me out of the water, and I will recreate the look on my face when this happened. But let's get started. What is Access Consciousness?
So Access Consciousness, the purpose of it is to help you become totally aware and totally conscious. You mentioned before why can't we treat ourselves as awesome all the time? And that's part of what Access Consciousness helps you to do, is to help you know that you're a conscious being, that you're magic, that you're an infinite being who's infinitely potent, and we can do so much more than we have been taught that we could do. So that's what I love about Access Consciousness.
So, with Access Consciousness, I'm trying to think how to frame this next question. It teaches us that we're infinite beings, and, you know, there's always something within us that seems to block us. I feel like we all have our crosses to bear, or however you want to say it. How does Access Consciousness work? Is it so, I know you teach classes and you work with people. When you're working with someone, do you have a discussion? Do you do something physical? Talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so when I have a private session with somebody, I usually spend the first half an hour talking to them and doing the clearing statement and other verbal processes. And then about 1 hour after that, I'll do either a bar session or a body process session. And so the clearing statement, as you mentioned, is very important. It's very fundamental to Access Consciousness.
So do you want to, I don't know what the law is, if teaching, are you allowed to talk about the clearing statement? Are you allowed to say that for us, or does someone need to take a class?
You don't have to take a class. You can say that. But before I talk about the clearing statement, one of the most important tools of Access Consciousness is the questions that you ask of the universe, not questions that you ask of your mind, because your mind is limited to what it knows already. So when you ask questions of the universe, like, how does it get any better than this? And you don't try to answer it yourself, and you don't have any expectations, wonderful and magical things can happen.
So can we stop there for a second?
Sure.
So let's talk about that. So I'm just going to take me for an example. So if I was to sit there and say, okay, how can it get any better than this? Does that mean, am I just staying at general statement, or when you work with someone, do you concentrate on an area in their life maybe where they're struggling or want to do better, and how does that work exactly?
I would say that when I'm working with somebody one-on-one, we usually zero in on one or more aspects of their lives that they're not unhappy, rather they're not happy with at the moment. But the how does it get any better than this question can apply to almost everything. And in fact, it does apply to everything. You could get up in the morning and say, how does it get any better than this? And what else is possible? What else is possible is another one of my favorite questions for the universe.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk a little bit about that. Do you use those together? Like when you wake up in the morning, do you ask yourself both these questions, or do you maybe use one, say, in relationships, or one has to do with work? Is there something, or it's just flat out you use them with everything?
I use them with everything these days. When I started out, I used how does it get any better than this much more than what else is possible. And now I like both of them a lot.
Good. So then let's just break it down for a second. So what else is possible? So if someone says, I'm trying to think of, okay, let's just take me as an example. If I'm kind of in a weird thing and kind of massaging what I'm doing for my employment and my business. So how would I use that, say, to gain clients in the direction that I want to go? Is that something we can use as an example?
We could.
Or if you need a better one, I have lots of stuff going on.
That's fine. I would start with how does it get any better than this and what else is possible. And then I would also ask some more questions that are more specific. For example, what would it take is a great question for almost everything.
Okay.
So what would it take in your case? What would it take for me to gain more clients?
Okay. And then I could say, well, for instance, I'm just thinking what comes off the top of my head, like I'm redoing my website in an effort, I have 3 websites, I'm bringing it down to 1 in an effort to streamline so I'm not all scattered and have it under an umbrella. Is that the type of answer if we were to have a conversation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So in that case, what would it take for all this merging of my 3 websites to be seamless and magnificent? Just an example. And then you can add everything that doesn't allow that. I now uncreate and destroy it all times a godzillion. And then you follow that with a clearing statement, which is right, wrong, good, bad, all 9, POC, boys, shorts, and beyonds. And no, you don't have to remember it all right now.
Now so then we went into, let's talk a little bit more about the clearing statement. So if I'm understanding correctly, then the goal, so kind of with the what else is possible, and how can it get any better than this, we're kind of opening up to anything, to all possibilities.
Yes.
Would that be a good way to phrase it? Okay, so we have that. And then after it is a clearing statement to release anything that's within us that's preventing that. Is that a good way to describe it? Okay. So I want to break the clearing statement down because I know you're doing an abbreviated version a little more, but help me understand. So is it clearing me energetically? Is it clearing my ego, my mind? What is it doing when we do the clearing statement?
It's clearing the energy of what had come up before.
Okay.
For example, what would it take for me to gain more clients? So a certain energy comes up with that. Then every certain energy comes up with that. So every time that you say that some energy comes up, and then you follow that with, I now uncreate and destroy everything that doesn't allow that. So that creates some more energy. And then the clearing statement kind of dissolves anything that's the obstacle in those energies that came up.
And so it might be stuff that I'm obviously not aware of.
Yes.
Okay.
Mostly it's going to be something that you're not aware of. Obstacles that you've had unconsciously rather than anything that you've done consciously.
Now, when you're working with someone, my husband and I were talking last night, and I told him of a technique. Someone was driving him bonkers, and I said, well, this is something I learned, put that person in a rose and blow them up. And then, because that way, what I've learned and come to understand is that the rose is a universal symbol of love. So if you put someone in a rose, that's putting them in love and blowing them up and releasing the energy and like getting it like clearing, instead of being like, oh, this person's driving me nuts, so, and you keep blowing them up on love until they don't bother you anymore, as a certain technique. So my client, I said, well, you might have to blow up someone 1,000 times. I mean, who knows? But so is access consciousness something that people need to say regularly, or it kind of clears? What's been your experience with that?
It depends on what you're using it for. If it's some very deep-seated issue that you had for many years or for many lifetimes, obviously, that's going to take a much more time to clear than something that has just come up, say, yesterday. And at the same time, I have to say, as long as you don't have any expectations about how long it's going to take, maybe it will take less time than you thought.
Right. Yeah, no, I think everything is absolutely individualized. But could you maybe give an example of how you've used access consciousness to help a client?
Okay. So one of the issues that comes up very often in my clients is they will, as they come to me initially, is they will say, I have no money, or some variation of that. So what you can do in that case, first of all, is maybe you could rephrase it a little bit. Instead of saying, I have no money, which seems very permanent, you could say, I have no money in this 10 seconds, I have no money in this current moment, which allows for the possibility in the next moment something can change. Then what you can say is, what would it take for me to generate and create a whole lot more money right away? Or another question would be, what can I be or do in order to create more money right away? And then you add, everything that doesn't allow that, I now uncreate and destroy all times a gazillion. Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, pop, boys, shorts, and beyonds.
So then, can you? So what you've done is an abbreviated version. Are you allowed to kind of explain what the boys, shorts, and beyond means, or is that too? I don't want to give any secrets or training, or if you can maybe, that's an abbreviation for something, and explain that, and maybe in a nutshell what that does.
Well, there is an explanation for it, which can be found on the Access Consciousness website and also Dr. Dane Here's website. And it would take a long time, which we might not have today, to explain it all today. No. The thing, what I can say is, it makes no sense, and it's not supposed to make any sense. If you go, after I said that, then good, you're doing well. It works on a magical level. If you've seen Harry Potter or watched Harry Potter, or even seen a magician on stage pulling a rabbit out of a hat and who says abracadabra, you know that magic sometimes requires a magic spell. And for me, the clearing statement is a magic spell.
Gotcha. So it's just more like, because I'm a recovering A-lister or type A and analytical, so it's really about, and you mentioned that at the beginning of the show, it's really about seeing the magic and not getting caught up in what it means.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right, fantastic.
There's a saying in Access Consciousness that if you're thinking, you're stinking.
Okay. And so then it's trying to get us away from, I use mind and ego interchangeably, so I don't know if that, correct me if it's, different from your teaching. But so really it's about kind of getting us out of the mind. Yes. Is that a fair statement? And so when you're talking about clearing the energy, that is about, I'm trying to understand. I mean, you described it well. So it's like taking money, people wanting to have not enough money, a variation of that. So within them, maybe it's something that happened to them in their childhood, or maybe, they had a teacher that told them money was evil, and whatever reason that got stuck inside of them and comes up. So when you're doing this clearing, is it like coming out in your aura? Is it literally, do you see it as energy? I mean, I think everything's just energy, so...
It's more of an electrical discharge.
Okay.
So, because all the stuff that we learn, like money's evil, quote unquote, is stored in our brain in certain areas. And if you compare your brain to a computer, you could say that the money evil file is a temporary file or a junk file. So when you use a clearing statement, it starts to delete that file.
Got you. Okay. All right. So now, when we were talking earlier, and if I've been saying this incorrectly, so we were talking about, we're laughing, we're trying to put Sophie's title on, and it's too long with how she has to correctly say it. So it's access consciousness bars facilitator. So how does the bars play into it? What is that? Does that mean?
So the bars are excellent at clearing these junk files that we just talked about, because there are points on our heads that correspond to various aspects of our lives, such as money, one of them, sexuality is another, body is another, control is another. So there are 32 bars total. And when you start to touch these points, and all you do is touch, you're not channeling any energy or anything. As you touch these bars, then these files, these junk files start to disappear. You start to delete them, not just for anything that has happened in this life, but for other lives as well.
So would you liken it to acupressure? So just kind of...
It's not acupressure in that you do not have to press hard or anything. All you have to do is touch.
Okay.
And it does happen that some of these bars are in areas where acupuncture points are, but it's a different paradigm. It's not the same. It might be in the same area, but it's doing different things.
So can you explain how it's different from acupuncture? Is it I wouldn't have any... I mean, my understanding is when you do acupuncture, at least I think it is it's like they are trying to, if something's blocked, open it up. And I could be completely wrong about that, but that was always my understanding. So are you trying to retrain? Are you trying to rewire? Release? What would you say?
Well, I don't know more about acupuncture than you do, but my understanding also is that it is to open up a blockage. Here we're not talking about blockages really, we're just talking about something that's there and we're helping it to discharge electrically.
Okay. So when someone comes in and they have an appointment with you, first you'd talk, you'd kind of do like, okay, how can it get any better than this? And then, what else is possible? And then as you talk a little further, you'll probably figure out, okay, this is where they're blocked. And so then you do the clearing statement. So kind of you do the mental part first, and then you have someone like lie down on a table, and then you would do the bars aspect.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and usually once have determined which bars they need more than others, because not everybody's going to need all 32 bars equally at any moment. Once I've determined which bars they need more, those are the ones that I spend the most time on, because the more time you spend on those bars, obviously, the more electrical discharge happens and the more limitations go away.
Okay. So then when someone sees you, then obviously bars is every part of a session, but would someone maybe come in and be like, just do the bars thing? Or you usually do the little access consciousness beforehand?
I would say most of the time I do the access consciousness beforehand. On some occasions, I've just come in and just started doing the bars with them. Or access consciousness also has body processing, and sometimes I will start doing those as well without talking first. But I'd say in at least 90% of the cases, I talk first.
Okay. All right, great. I wanted to know, I'm trying to get a file I want to show when we get onto the energetic facelift part. Sophie took a before and after of me, and I want people to see this because it's so phenomenal, the transformation. It just is amazing. So why don't we talk about that now? Trying to send it wasn't a JPEG, it was from the Facebook page, so I think that's why we can't do that. So I'm going to ask this question and then put the camera back on Sophie, because I'm going to go through and see if I still have it in another file. But so Sophie does this energetic facelift, and we'll talk about how you bring access consciousness into it. That would be the first step.
Okay, so access consciousness, in addition to the bars and the clearing statement and questions, access consciousness also has what's called body processes. These are hands-on processes. So if I'm doing a body process on somebody, I would put my hands on them, on their bodies at a location that's indicated by the process that I'm running. And when I do that, I activate a certain body process, a certain energy, so to speak. And then I follow that also with a clearing statement. So as I do that, it helps to dissipate whatever has been the limitation in the body, or sometimes in the mind as well. Our bodies are infinitely intelligent and smart, and the energies are intelligent also. So when you combine the two, amazing things can happen. I love to tell a story one time about a client who came to me, and before he came into my office, I was asking his body what he needed, which body process he needed. And what came up was a body process for correcting vision specifically. So he came in and he said, well, my shoulder hurts because somebody hit me in the car. And I was thinking, well, this ought to be very interesting. And I listened to my awareness and my consciousness, and I did run the correcting vision process anyhow. The next day, he told me, I feel so much better. Thank you so much. So body processes can do amazing things. And the energetic facelift is actually a set of body processes that you run, that I run on people using the clearing statement as well. And it starts to eliminate some of the things that make us get older, because if we're totally aware, we would not get as old as we normally would.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. I learned that. You're the first. Thank you. First person telling me that. Huh. Okay, that's fascinating. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I like when I get those aha moments. I like to point those out. So I'm sorry.
I love that. Don't apologize. But yes, I do love that, because we age because we look around us and we see our parents' age and our aunts and uncles' age, or just somebody on the street age, and we think, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be. So we start to acquire wrinkles and age spots and all of that, and our muscles and our face start to sag. And it's a mimicry. It's a copying of other people's, sometimes so that we would appear normal and average.
Oh, I believe that. Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. You know, I've mentioned on the show more than once, I have seen within myself and others the ability of the body to heal. I mean, I'm reading a book now I just finished, and it's fascinating, and he uses scientific studies, really melds science and spirituality. But, you know, I've talked often, I've had severe allergies. I'd never had pets as a child. I'm a total Sophie's another, she's a cat mom like me, and I met my husband, and Joey had no issue. And we were actually talking about that this morning. Allergies, so I never had it. I had allergies growing up, went to California, got a break for 10 years because they just have smog. They don't have all this god-awful crap that we have in the humidity in the South. But spring and fall are really bad for me. But this spring, I hardly had, I mean, it's so bad that I have to use something, and I hardly had anything. So my view is I clear my junk. Mm-hmm. The more that I clear it out, whatever is going on, then it helps release the need. And you might be able to say it better than I do, but what I would say is it releases the need for me to have that in my life anymore. I know someone who had double vision and corrected it. Mm-hmm. You know, that was from an accident. So I completely believe that we were able to do that. Do we have the pics? Mm-hmm. So here, we're going to throw this up. No makeup, what I do for you people on the show. So I laugh. After, and hopefully you can see, you know, a great thing, I posted this on Facebook, and everyone was asking me questions about it and kind of explaining it. So, you know, no trick photography. It's right at the same place. I kept laughing after we showed the picture. Now, is there anything you want to talk about or point out of the photos that we have up on the screen right now?
No, except that sometimes it still amazes me. In fact, every time it still amazes me how some people can change.
Yeah, I mean, I call it the cranky spot. If you look in between my eyebrows, that just, you know what, it is what it is. I'm not going to stress about it. But I was so amazed after Sophie did this, and my husband was there. It was really funny, and you know, I'm kind of the weird one in our family, and he was like, hey, it's all good. But I kept walking around like this afterwards. Let Amnon put the camera on me so we can see me. Thank you for putting that up. So I kept walking, touching my face because I couldn't believe it. And so now laughing, I said to her, I wear hearing aids. And I said, oh, I don't have my ears in. And she's like, you know what? You'll need to hear what you need to hear, so don't sweat it. So talk about that, because you talk to me during the process of doing this. So what are you saying? What's going on? Is that part of the access consciousness? Is that a way to bring it in?
Yes, I talk not just to you, the being, but I talk to your body as well, because your body has a consciousness also. And so I usually talk during a body process, during the energetic visit to the body, and I ask them, show me what else is possible. And I tell them, it's okay if you don't imitate other people. It's okay to be you. It's okay to be beautiful. It's okay to be healthy, and that kind of stuff. And I do believe that it communicates to the body.
Excellent. Now, did you finish?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay. So, I hate getting old. This is why I bring pen and paper, so I can write down my thought. Have you ever had a body say to you, I just don't want to heal, or I don't want to? I mean, I personally believe we all have our lessons to learn in this lifetime. We all have, if someone doesn't heal and dies, like, to me, I don't see that as bad. I see that as part of their journey. I see it as part of their life, but maybe that contradicts the clearing statement. What are your thoughts about that?
It doesn't contradict access consciousness, because we all come to this life for some purpose, whatever it is. And in access consciousness, there's no right and there's no wrong. It just is. So if you can choose to come in and die of cancer at the age of 20, it's your free will, and it's your prerogative to do that. Yes, I might be sad if you transition, and it's what you chose to do. Access consciousness is all about choice, and if you can help somebody change their choice, then okay. But if they don't change their choices, that's okay too, whatever their choice is.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that in every moment you have a choice. And, you hear people a lot of times say, don't have a choice, and I don't believe that. And I also believe that the present moment is your power, because you can choose, and I'm speaking from experience. Sadly, that's how I can talk about this. I think for a long time, I had some trauma as a child that I suppressed. So for a long time, I was living in the past, or I was anxious about the future. I was never really in the present moment. It was either anchored in the past or worried or anxious about the future. So I believe that the present is our power to change. Now, when you're talking about the body having its own consciousness, do you see that as, so there's Julie's body consciousness and my spiritual consciousness? Are they separate? Are they working as a tag team? How do you see that set up?
So ideally, your consciousness would be working in communion with your body's consciousness. It is not always that case. However, I do have to tell you, your body is always trying to help you, no matter what it looks like. Even if your body gets breast cancer, as happened to me about 6 years ago, it still was trying to help me. And I have to tell you that experience has been one of the greatest blessings in my life, by the way, which I have no intention of repeating. And it was a great blessing.
Now, I love that you say that, because I was just talking with someone last week, and it was an aha moment for me. And how they said it's something similar to you, but they said it's your body's way of communicating. It's your body's way of telling you something needs to change, something have to have a different outcome. And I think for you to see it as a blessing, and I think if people were to just have that mind shift, what can I learn? What are you trying to tell me? And that to me would be kind of huge. That if you can go from seeing it from a negative as to what can I learn, what can I gain from this. Would you like to share what your lessons were from that, if it's not too personal or whatever you're comfortable with?
Well, what I learned is that, first of all, before I felt the lump in my breast, I was not very happy with my life. I was judging it a lot. I was occasionally thinking of maybe I could find a way of exiting sooner. And the moment I felt a lump in my breast, all that went away. So that was a great blessing. It, the cancer experience also allowed me to open my heart a lot more. And the people around me who could see my aura could tell me that my energy field got much bigger and much brighter at the same time. So that is wonderful. And even though I didn't see my aura at the time because I was too stressed out, I could tell the difference in the way that people started to treat me. People I would just meet them in the parking lot, and they would say, "This is somebody that I barely know them," and they would say, "Oh, we should have lunch together. Let me cook something for you." So,
interesting. Wow. So it like shifted.
Yes. Yeah. It shifted the way I think of people. It shifted my whole outlook on life. So your body's always trying to help you no matter what it looks like. Even if your body is deteriorating, it could be because there's a reason. Sometimes the reason might be that it's showing you that somebody else near you is having the same problem. And it's still a message for you. So your body's always trying to help you. Now, I had to say that I was not always trying to help my body. So it's been a journey for me to learn to appreciate my body more and to know what it does for me and to talk with it and ask what it requires rather than just shoving any food that I like down my mouth.
Oh. Raising my hand on that
well,
one.
Here too.
You know, I am, and I struggle with this, and I will go through periods where I think I'm on top of it, that I'm an emotional eater. Mm-hmm. If I get anxious or stressed, mm-hmm. I can inhale something, and mm-hmm. you know, but what I'm trying to find that balance of, like, you know, I don't blame my husband, but I joke, you know, I've eaten more pasta since meeting him. You know, I never wanted to meet someone. I never ate. Mm-hmm. And so, parts I've gained like 20 pounds. I went swimsuit shopping. Like, God, you're 2 sizes bigger. But not getting stuck in that, because part of me thinks it's healthy in the sense that I don't have that mask on anymore. Mm-hmm. That I would say, even in intimate relationships I wore. But I feel like I don't have that anymore anywhere. I mean, I might be reserved at first when I'm getting to someone, not be like, tell my whole life story, but there's not this trying to be something I'm not, or trying to be what I think they want me to be. So part of me feels like my body's like, oh, thank God. Uh-huh. You know, it was exhausting to hold all that in. But, you know, I would like to get to a place where I'm healthy with that. So let's use that, as because I know you and I think it's a thing that a lot of women struggle with, and I think men struggle with it as well, especially as, you know, there's all this pressure when see being a perfect 10 or whatever in all these magazines and blah, blah, blah. But I think it's also shifted for men as well. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, you see like, oh, you hear about more men getting plastic surgery. Mm-hmm. So when we're emotionally eating, how would you bring access consciousness into it to help clear that?
There are many ways you can do it in access consciousness. First thing is verbal processing, like asking a question followed by the clearing statement. Questions like, what would it take for me to be in total communion with my body? And everything that doesn't allow that, I know, uncreate and destroy at all times a gazillion, right, wrong, good, bad, all 9 pop, void, shorts, and beyonds. That would be one question that you can ask. There are many variations on that theme that you can do. Like, what generative energy, space, and consciousness can my body and I be that would allow us to be the body that we truly were meant to be, would be another one. Mm-hmm.
And what are you doing with that statement? So you kind of, it's like you've cleared and are bringing in. Is that an accurate description, or
Well, it's a verbal process like all the others. So after I say that, everything that doesn't allow that to happen, I now uncreate and destroy, right, wrong, good, bad, all 9 pop, void, shorts, and beyonds. So verbal processing is a big part of it. The bars can also help with that as well, because it releases your limitations about what you think your body ought to look like, or what your body ought to do or not do. And then we also have other body processes that can help you to appreciate your body more and to be able to work with it better. So all of access consciousness can help you with weight. The other thing is, what you learn is or ought to be the way you should look.
Oh, right, yeah, but that's huge.
Yes, it is. So we have been implanted by our whole society. Every time you go watch a TV show or read a magazine or even just talk to somebody, we learn that we're supposed to all look like a size 0. And what if our bodies are not supposed to look like a size 0? What if we're beautiful no matter what size we are? So that is a huge thing that the bars can help you with, because it helps you to undo all these implanted ideas.
But think about that. That's really, I mean, I'm going to say it in a joking manner, but that's revolutionary. You would dismantle plastic surgery. Mm-hmm. You would dismantle diet drugs. Mm-hmm. You dismantle all of that. Mm-hmm. You would literally, if every woman and man, child would think I'm beautiful and accept myself as the way they are, all that would go away.
Yes.
Which is, I think would be awesome. But, I mean, so, okay, this might get a little woo-woo, but, we're going to go out there. So, has your experience been, would people who would benefit, and I'm just using this as an example, try to prevent people from waking up or becoming more consciousness? In the sense, does everyone have to be experience access consciousness in bars to individually clear and become whole again? Could you do it maybe on a group, or could you do a healing on a global level? Because if you're talking about someone's livelihood, even if they know in their soul, that's right, they might have resistance. Did I get a little too crazy for you? Does that make sense?
Not at all.
Okay,
it's
good.
Not
all
crazy
right.
at all.
Okay, all right, good.
And in fact, I think that applies to much more than access consciousness. It applies to all energetic and emotional healing. As you heal, it spreads to everybody around you, to everybody on earth. So you can do the work and other people will benefit. Sometimes it might seem unfair, and that's the way it is. I know that around me, as I do the work, I've noticed people changing. So that's wonderful to see.
Yeah, no, I just think, and I agree with you, is I heal, you heal, and that eventually helps raise awareness. Now, at one point we were talking about the body having a separate consciousness, and then before I asked about emotional eating, you said, oh, my body would say this, but then I would eat whatever. So when you're talking about were you talking about your mind consciousness, the ego?
My mind or my emotional body sometimes.
Okay. Your emotional body. So my question is, would you say working with people that most of us, that our body consciousness and our mind consciousness, are they working together, or are they out of whack?
I would say it varies.
Okay. Okay, no, because it just made me think, because I'm the same way, and, it's kind of that schizophrenic, like, I know that I should eat better, I know, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a hamburger. But that's a conscious decision. I only regret it 5 months later when I go swimsuit shopping and I'm like, I've gained 20 pounds. But I'm aware of that on a certain level. Now, but I would also say there are moments, if I'm really upset, I could sit there and I'm like, I don't get a pint of Jerry's because I will eat the whole thing. I know what I'm able to do. Like, I had a friend that used to drive me nuts. She could have a scoop and put the ice cream back. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, that could last that long. I wish I could. But again, that's kind of still my albatross around my neck of if I'm anxious about something, dealing with it in a more positive way.
Yeah. So it might not be your best choice, and it's just a choice.
Right.
But the more aware and the more conscious you become, you just become more aware of your body as well, and what it needs and what it requires, and you're aware of why you're doing what you're doing. So as you heal all of that, your body starts to change also. After I started to learn the Access Consciousness bars, for a while I was following what my body was saying. So when I go to the supermarket, I would ask my body what it wants to eat, and I would buy that. And even though I was not on a diet of any kind, I was not avoiding any kind of food, I lost probably at least 15 pounds that way.
Okay, so let's talk about this, because I'm going to be replaying this. So because, for instance, first of all, I would like to share this tip with everyone, and maybe the whole world knew this but me. I went to my favorite Italian restaurant, and I ate for the first time in my life a bowl of kale. It was in a salad, but what I learned is it was Tuscan kale, and there's a huge difference. Like, you go to the grocery store and you see that big leafy, curly stuff. That's junk compared to this Tuscan thing. It's yeah. I'm like, oh my God, this stuff's great. And, you know, I had salad dressing on it where it was really healthy, and I was like, my body's like, this is awesome. So first clue, get Tuscan kale. If you're trying to eat more kale, it'll make a huge difference. But so if I'm in the store asking my body, okay, what do you want? How do I know that it's coming from my heart or my body consciousness and not my ego being like, oh yeah, the cheesecake. It's what I want. Because my body's probably going, no.
Mm-hmm. So you could run you could run a verbal process, like what would it take for me to actually listen to my body and be able to receive communication from my body, and everything that doesn't allow that, right, wrong, good, bad, online, pop, boys, shorts, and beyonds. And there are many other verbal processes like that you can run. The other thing you can do also is to expand. Now, you all know, well, you know, Julie, definitely, that we are not just our bodies. We have an energy field around us as well. And our energy field could expand. And the more you expand, the more you'll be able to receive, not just from your body, but from the whole universe. So expand and just expand, and it also takes practice.
Yeah, unfortunately, you said the magical word. That would be paying attention, doing something.
Yes, it takes practice, and it takes knowing that you can receive.
Right. Yeah.
Knowing that you can receive, knowing that you can perceive, and knowing that you do know. So everywhere that you are defending against knowing, being, perceiving, and receiving, where you uncreate and destroy that, all times are Gaussian. Right, wrong, good, bad, online, pop, boys, shorts, and beyonds.
So yeah, so it comes back to that. Now, you had touched on it earlier, what I like about this, and how I first heard about it. I told you I met Sophie through Julian Trello was like asking me these questions. Talk about how, as you start to do access consciousness in bars, you talk about how it raises your awareness and consciousness everywhere. So can you maybe give examples personally or with a client who maybe came to see you about started to work with you, and then had all these other, awareness. I think it's a step. I joke about it, and I can say, oh, I know it's not good to eat the cheesecake, but I'm aware of it. To me, because I would say through a lot of my life, I wasn't aware. So at least if I'm aware and making the choice, that is a step in the right direction. And then we want the next step to come, to be like okay, listen, what do you really need, and go from there. But what's your experience, how it raises awareness and consciousness in other ways for people?
Well, I do these verbal processes a lot about knowing, being, perceiving, and receiving, and it just starts to come. It's magic, like all of access consciousness. And what was a breakthrough is, before I started Access Consciousness, I was somewhat aware, and I always doubted myself. And I attended an Access Consciousness class last year about bodies, and what my teacher told me, it made a big impact on me. She said, consciousness and awareness do not have an off button. It's always on. It's just whether you choose to use it or not.
Right, yeah.
And can I say a cuss word?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, in this class, we're supposed to use our awareness to come up with a body process that we would like to run or have it run on people. And when I heard that, I went inside my brain, oh shit. And the funny thing is, because I had to do it. And I realized as I was doing it, I really can do this. Wow, how great is that? So that was a big confidence booster for me. And just this past week, I had a vase of flower in my foyer, and they were on their way out, or so I thought. So I had dumped out all the water and just left the flowers in the vase. And I went by it a few minutes later, and I realized, oh my God, they're thirsty. And it was just no effort at all. I just realized they were thirsty. So I put water back in the vase, and it's been a week since then, and they're still doing well.
Wow.
So everywhere you're defending against knowing, being, perceiving, with your uncreated, distorted, all times of Godzillion, and right, wrong, good, bad, all night, pop, voice, shows, and beyonds. And I also use verbal processes like this before I have a session. I would say, what generative energy, space, and consciousness can my body and I be that will allow me to give this loved one, because I call all my clients loved ones, that will allow me to give this loved one the most healing and the most nurturing session that he or she and their bodies are capable of receiving. And I also ask, what would it take for me to know, to be, to perceive, to receive during a healing session? And everything that doesn't allow that, I now uncreated, destroyed all times a gazillion. So I do these verbal processes day in and day out several times a day. I don't just trot them out once a week.
Right. That's a part of your life. It's
yes,
part of your
it is.
routine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I think is interesting, you talked about how it helped raise your confidence, and you talked about your teacher and your oh crap in class, but now you're teaching classes. Yes. I mean, I would think that that to me is a big deal. Because, I used to be deathly afraid of public speaking. Like, if you would have told me this, I've been doing this, 3 years in August, I never in the past would have gotten in front of the camera. I was always comfortable with I love to write and being behind the scenes. I was having I'm like, I love this. So, but that's great. So now you're teaching.
Yeah. And I have a similar story to you. I used to hate teaching. 5 years ago, well, let me see. Okay, maybe 8 years ago, if you had told me that I'd be teaching and loving it, I'd say, no way. And some people kept bugging me to start teaching, and they bugged me enough so I would start. And now I love it. So there you go.
So it's happened. Now talk a little bit about that, because I know you do class. I'm going to get to your classes one of these times. My life will hopefully slow down or just get normal in a second. But if someone, now I would go, I don't have an interest of teaching Access Consciousness, but I would want to do it for my own personal benefit. So if someone comes to take the class, what kind of tools will they learn? Can you maybe share experiences of students who said, oh, I came in and this has helped me with this in my life, or why people would want to take the class?
Well, different classes will accomplish different things. So in the Access Bars class, what you learn is to find where all the points are in your head and how to touch them. And during the bars class, you will get to give the bars twice and receive the bars twice. So even if you don't learn all of them right away, it still is a great deal to do that, because you get 4 sessions, because when you give, you receive as well. So you get 4 sessions in one day for $200, which is quite great to me. So that's for the Access Bars class. I also do some verbal processings in the bars class, and it's not something that has to be a part of the class.
Okay.
Some teachers will teach and do a lot less verbal processing than I do. And in body classes, well, let's face it, I do verbal processing all the time.
I was going to say
in
that's
all classes.
Yeah, no, which I think is wonderful. So, do you still do Reiki with people?
Yes, I do.
So then still, even if you're doing Reiki, you're bringing in those verbal processes?
Sometimes I do,
you
yes.
do. Okay.
When it's appropriate.
Because it sounds like it really, that the bars and the access has just completely influenced your life. And I think it's fascinating that you have brought it into the energetic facelift, because that's something, and to me it just makes so much sense. Even if people don't believe. I mean, my thing is, I do this, and my hope is they watch whoever is going to speak to them and allows them to raise their awareness and the consciousness. But think about, just, I can't remember the guy that did the water experiment. If you say, I hate you, you're ugly, you're blah, 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 blah. Well, I'd wrinkle up too. And I'd be like, well, if that's how you want to be, then that's how I'm going to respond. And everything is energy. So when you bring in that access consciousness and working with the face, it just makes so much sense.
Yes.
And you don't have a side effect like Botox. I can verify that it felt great. I was like walking around with it. But just a simple phrase for me, what else is possible, really, if you could just start with that. I mean, I think that's what else is possible. Because I think sometimes people, if they're in a rough spot, can't even see that.
Yeah, what else is possible is great. And if you can ask that and not have any expectations about how it's going to show up, it will be even greater.
All right, let's talk about that for a moment.
Okay.
You have to hold your thought. Because I think that's where a lot of us get stuck. Expectations, because I want it to look like this. This true story. I'm sorry, I'm on my husband. It's my birthday. He got me just breakfast in bed. It was really great. But I wanted a guy 6'3". And I wrote out a lot of the qualities I wanted. And I wanted someone with integrity, a big heart, and my husband is all that. And 2 weeks before I met him, I took off the height thing. That was the only thing that I had of a physical thing that I wanted. I got a guy an inch shorter than me. Ha. I mean, what are you going to do? But I let go of my expectation, and I got what I needed and wanted. But I don't think and I'm not just talking about relationships. I think we think, our life has to look like this, or, I want X to happen, but then, we might be too busy, it's got to be like this, and then we miss it because it comes a different way. So talk a little bit about that, and then I'm sorry, I want you to finish your thought, but I wanted to jump on that bandwagon because I think so many of us get stuck there.
Yeah, I loved your story, by the way. So expectations limit you. Let's say you have this big door through which everything comes into your life. Every time you have an expectation or judgment, you close that door a little bit more. So the more judgments and more expectations you have, the more the opening will get narrower and narrower. So you'll get less of what's good, quote unquote good, as well as less of what you've been judging as bad. So what would it take for you to let go of all your judgments and all your expectations and everything that doesn't allow that? Will you uncreate and destroy at all times a gazillion? Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, pop, boys, shorts, and beyonds. I've seen it happen too with me. I don't always take the easiest way to things. Sometimes I'll struggle and kick and scream. And eventually I realized that I had to surrender. And the moment I surrender to what is, things start to happen.
Really? We have sound effects here in the studio. We try to make
I love
it
these
fun.
sound effects.
We need to do a hallelujah for her. But that's so true. When you surrender, it happens.
Yes.
It happens. And I think a lot of people can see that. Now, what would you say to someone? Because I think of times in my life where I could listen to an interview and watch this, and I'd be getting like, but then I'd be so overwhelmed, or I'd be in a place where I was really struggling. So what advice would you have for someone who just, maybe they're going through divorce, lost their job, just in a tough spot, and maybe can't see the forest through the trees? What advice would you have for them?
Okay, first I would say breathe. Breathing is always wonderful. That's not necessarily just an access consciousness technique. I tell that to everybody, and I've told that to everybody since before I learned access consciousness. So breathe it as if you're getting air into your belly rather than your lungs. And a few more times. There are many, many ways that you can shift your overwhelm. You could say, what would it take for me to not be overwhelmed anymore? And everything that doesn't allow that, I now uncreate and destroy at all times a gazillion. Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, pop, boys, shorts, and beyonds. What would it take for me to shift my perspective on this, whatever this is? And everything that doesn't allow that, I now uncreate and destroy at all times a gazillion. What would it take for me to change my point of view of this? And everything that doesn't allow that, I now uncreate and destroy at all times a gazillion. right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, pop, pop, boys, shorts, and beyonds. And those are just some of the ways that you can change. And so you notice I didn't tell you how to do it. I'm asking you to ask a question of the universe and then use the clearing statement. The clearing statement, by the way, you can abbreviate until you know it by heart. You can abbreviate it to POD, POC, POD, POC, POD, POC. And that's POD, POC, 3 times. And that's the short version of the clearing statement. And you can use it for so many things. When you are talking to somebody and they're telling you negative things about how things ought to happen, or how things will happen if you don't follow their advice, you can just in your mind say POC, 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 POC. Not only we have sound effects here in the studio, but we also have audience participation.
Score 1 for Sophie.
So breathe and just ask the universe a question like, what would it take for whatever? Or how does it get any better than this? And what else is possible? Those are great questions no matter what's going on in your life.
All right, that's awesome. But I'm going to force you to bring it down to 1.
Okay.
So you've given us lots of great advice today, but if you were to say, okay, what one step can people take to reawaken their brilliance out of all that stuff? If they're like, okay, awesome, break it down to 1 because that's a starting point. What would you say? What action could they take?
Okay. I would go, in this 10 seconds, I would go with a verbal process. What would it take for you to know, to be, to perceive, and to receive? And everything that doesn't allow that, will you uncreate and destroy it all times a gazillion? Right, wrong, good, bad, all 9, POD, POC, boys, shorts, and beyonds. All abbreviated to POD, POC, POD, POC, POD, POC.
And what's great about that, well, first of all, I'm going to give you a new nickname. Your nickname is now VP for verbal processes. I'm going to call you the VP. But what's so great about that, we don't need to analyze it.
Exactly.
We just believe in the magic, just repeat it, and trust in it. And that's, no matter where you are, I think that's something easy that people can do. Now, I want you to tell people your website. We've had it up, but if we haven't been paying attention, any classes you have coming up, anything, the facelift, whatever you want to share with what's going on and you have to offer people.
Okay. So my website is jolhealing.com. And the JOL stands for Jewels of Light. So jewelsoflighthealing.com. If you go there, right on the home page, you can see links for my calendar of events. There's a little pink rectangle on the right-hand side that says calendar, and also in the left navigation, there's a calendar link. If you go to the calendar, it will have all the classes that I have currently scheduled. Unless I'm behind in updating my website, which happens sometimes. But most of my classes are there. I do have a bars class coming up June 29th, if I remember correctly, in Raleigh, North Carolina. And another one July 26th, I believe, in Wilmington, North Carolina. So those are my next 2 bars classes. I also have body process classes and other things I'm doing that are not access consciousness as well. And I forgot what else you asked me.
Yes, you got it. You named everything. Okay. So fantastic. All right, so it's JOL Healing, everyone. Check Sophie out. She has more pictures besides my lovely mug on her website, so you can see how her energetic facelift has helped women and men, I guess, if you've done a man. Sorry, men, I don't mean to cut you short there. But check it out. It's really phenomenal stuff. I've, worked with Access Consciousness kind of on the periphery and want to take a class on that soon to learn more. I want to thank everyone for watching. I'm going to be at the beach next week, so come on and hang out and check out the archives. We'll have Sophie. We'll have all our shows. They've been turned into podcast, video, whatever your pleasure. But that is one place where I relax and I feel like time stands still. So I'm going to go recharge my batteries and we'll see you all here in a couple weeks. All right, everyone, get out there and reawaken your brilliance and we'll see you later. Bye now.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, and if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals. That vidblasterguy.com, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.